Hey, what's up, Canada and beyond? Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, grannies and gators. It is Monday, August 5th, and in some parts of the world, they will be calling this or are already calling this Black Monday. So I've got my nice black shirt on to talk about some of the trying to keep up with the insanity going on in clown world. So guys, thank you so much for being here. I know we've got a bunch of new people in the house tonight. We're going to dive into some big stuff that probably nobody else is looking at right now amidst all of the insanity, smoke and mirrors, distraction, and the mockingbird mercenary media. We're going to look at a lot of different things that are impacting the economy right now, maybe from an outside perspective. So, thank you all for tuning in here. Much appreciated. Please help us with a share, whatever platform you're reading this on, and we're going to cover a couple of different places where you guys can find us and make sure that you guys get plugged in, because some of what we're going to be looking at and seeing here tonight is coming to us, including Bill C-63. We're going to take a look at what's going on in the UK, and you guys will see some chilling parallels. So LGM.news is one of those places where you're going to be able to find us regardless of what is going on uh, every night, Monday to Friday, 6 p.m. Central, us and a few others, and we'll be getting some more people onto LGM as well. But that's always been a sturdy backup for us. And Substack. Substack is a big one right now, folks. I get to give you guys everything that I use in the show that I'm delivering. I put it in a Substack and usually try and get it out the next morning. This weekend, I took a couple of days away from the computer, pretty much did some other stuff. But Substack is where all the juicy bits, tidbits, the extras, the documents, to give you guys exactly what I'm talking about. You guys can have access to it as well. This is as much about giving you guys, arrows for your quivers per se in this information war. And so Substack is the place. Where can you find out? Isn't there an easy place to find my Substack? Well, you go to my whatsupcanada.org website, where you can get plugged into some of our partners, not sponsors. We don't get paid to do this. We have partners to help and serve the community. And after some extreme vetting, we have 3 partners. But if you get down to the bottom of the website, you'll find a easy place to find us on Substack, and of course, Rumble. Rumble's been pretty good. We've got a little bit of a beef with some perhaps interventions that they have foisted upon our platform. But Rumble is a good place to make sure that you get subscribed. I know that we're still being somewhat pseudo allowed to stream on Facebook, so we've got a few people there. Same thing on YouTube, but they make sure nobody gets any notifications. At least on Rumble, you guys will be able to join the community, stay connected in the chat, and not be missing your notifications. Another update with Mr. Charlambo. Looks like Thursday we have to reschedule on his behalf for him to join us, but Thursday rather than Wednesday we'll be hearing from David on. And I'm not letting go of this meeting with him, simply because I've seen it in real life, the impact that just a short amount of time listening to him and help us articulate and discuss harder, difficult conversations with people is so impactful. So we're going to be going through a ton of stuff tonight, guys. It is insanity all over the world. I want to say a special welcome to some of the new folks that are just subscribing. Throw it in the chat what part of the world you're tuning in from. We've got 11 viewers on X so far. We're streaming there. So the places where we are still on is X, Facebook, YouTube, Wimkin, Instagram, and of course Rumble, and LGM.news and What's Up Canada. So What is going on? Well, we've got a special congratulations. There's going to so tonight's. I try to make sure that there's some good news. It's a struggle these days. I'll tell you what, guys. Over the last few days, we're going to cover all of the dynamic stuff that's going on that is going to impact and affect us. But I have managed to find some good news to close the show out with. So we'll be hearing from Dr. Trotzi and Ted from Vaccine Choice Canada on some good news, as well as some other stuff that I've been able to dig out. But we're going to start off with a little bit of tongue-in-cheek humor and congratulations. I'm sure everybody's going to be absolutely tickled pink, pleased as punch that North Korea has managed to successfully deliver 250 nuclear-capable missile launchers to frontline units. What is frontline units? Well, that would pretty much be South Korea. So, as if there wasn't enough batshit cray stuff going on out there. These are the kinds of things you'll find here that you probably won't find elsewhere. Try to look at stuff that nobody else is digging on or sinking their teeth into, and particularly, especially the legacy media. This is where City News and CBC and everybody has their attention focused today on Manic Monday, I guess, for lack of a better term, for this, to me, mental illness capturing our societies and nations. But yeah, I just wanted everybody to kind of put this in the back of their mind that this is what 3 point some odd billion dollars a year in Canada is getting us, while we've got, this kind of stuff going on elsewhere. You kind of think that people might want to know, a little bit of have some news with some real diversity, like, I mean, diversity of information and knowledge and facts, things that are actually important. So it's I just want people to have that in the back of their mind when we go through some of these other stories. So I've been having a challenge with Google the last couple of days. Anybody else out there? Let me know if you're having issues with Google. Besides not finding anything in a search, they're really not letting me play YouTube channels. So I've switched to a different browser, and I want to make sure that everybody can hear what the videos are that I'm playing. So this is kind of a new adapt, improvise, and overcome thing that I'm trying to do. So I want to start with this. Keep in mind, guys, there's a 30-second time delay from what I see or hear or see or read in the chat. So I'm going to play this, and forgive me if you don't hear it and I don't hear you for 30 seconds or so.
Hi, Dr. Scott Jensen here. Over the last 3 years, we have together talked about a lot of issues. We have talked about masks and modeling. We have talked about lockdowns and social distancing. We have talked about vaccines and mandates. We have talked about parental rights and a whole lot of other things, including natural immunity, herd immunity, and what happened in nursing homes. Those issues will continue to be discussed, as well they should. But I need to sound the alarm. I read medical journals all the time, and 2 articles that had an odd connection over the last week came across my desk. First, Chris Mazzolini, editorial director of Medical Economics, has an article about a book written by Wendy Dean, a physician, who talks about physician moral injury. You might ask yourself, what does that mean? Dr. Wendy Dean says that moral injury is this sense of feeling as if you're betrayed by somebody in a position of authority in a high-stakes situation. And that situation causes you to transgress your deeply held moral beliefs and expectations. And in medicine, those beliefs and expectations are the oaths that we took to put our patients first. This is what's happening to physicians. When we feel that people in authority who we thought had our back and were doing the right thing, that they controlled us and didn't perform. And that caused us to potentially compromise our commitment to our patients. And it's happened across the land, across the globe. Let's turn to the second article. An article in Jazz Shaw called "The Medical Field is Erasing Its Own COVID Era History." Here's what it says. Pfizer and the rest of the big pharma companies assured the government that everything was just fine with the vaccines because they had been doing super serious testing. And the government dutifully reported the cheerful news to us while using all of that data to impose lockdowns, mask mandates, and immunity passport systems. And now, according to one group that tracks publications in scientific journals, a lot of the original research and test results are mysteriously disappearing. More than 300 papers and scientific articles have vanished in the past year. We have to be on red alert. What we're seeing is potentially substandard medical publications used to push forward, promote a narrative, and squash all other narratives. And now that some of the dust is settling, we're seeing these articles withdrawn, disappearing. You won't find them potentially on internet. This is problematic. We knew during the pandemic that several specific instances occurred where high-quality journals, such as Lancet, the New England Journal of Medicine, published articles that a short time later required a retraction or a revision or a redaction. We're seeing this happen in spades now. We're seeing 300 plus articles disappearing. And I think you and I both know why. In many situations, it was shoddy research. It was shoddy analysis. It wasn't peer reviewed, or the conclusions drawn from the data were clearly spurious. And we asked the question, was this born of a nefarious agenda? My friends, I don't remember any time in my 40 years of medical history where in a short span of time, journal articles in the hundreds and hundreds were disappearing. This feels like people are covering their tracks. And we need to pay attention. When medical journals that were used at one time to push a narrative and squash another narrative are now disappearing, my profession has a big problem.
I couldn't agree more with Dr. Jensen on this. And this channel has been, it's received every form of censorship abuse against this platform for being one of the I hate to use the word brave, but because I'm not brave, I am just I just have a GFY attitude about being silenced, and that seeing the damage that's being created and manifested on our people over this, what's clearly a malicious, premeditated attempt for nefarious reasons, and we'll talk about a whole bunch of other different stuff on that. So I have deep foreboding about this latest push to put all of the information down the memory hole when there is so much against them that is coming out. And we are seeing here, I'm seeing some comments in the chat here. I'm going to pull over here for pull up a couple of these guys. I haven't seen specifically about this, but I have seen where they are trying to get lobbying the United Nations organization WHO to bring in enforcement on that. I have seen that. In here, Jennifer Jupiter on the Lloydminster Carbon Tax group chat, someone was posting that New Zealand has passed a law that those refusing. I haven't confirmed that, but I've seen the musings from different organizations as of yet. So I don't want to. Here's the thing, guys. there's a lot of information going out there, going, just coming out of everywhere. And I caution people to get caught in the doom loop and the fear and terror porn. It's dangerous to get caught and trapped into that. So I'm really looking at things to slow the emotional state down on this. This was why, when we had James on the other night and spoke to the so much to the testing that they're using to oh, if I get a beep here, we've got a caution thing. But to be aware rather than fearful. Right now, we have to get our yeah, okay. It looks like we've got a spammer on Facebook. I'll see if I can get over there and get that looked after for you guys. My apologies. There's a lot to juggle when I'm doing one of these. I can't really be in every chat all of the time, but I will get over there. Thank you for letting me know. I do see it, and I will be over there in just a moment to clean that up for you guys. Um, all right. Sorry, guys. All right. Sorry about that. Yeah. Yes, just some alerts going on, trolls going on. Wow, this is crazy. Um, my apologies for being distracted here, but yeah, there's so much going on. There's a lot of good point, Carly. A lot of it's a misnomer. It's pure manipulated. Tasha. Uh, and her Fishman's fraud is absolutely worth understanding. This is a whole lot of manipulation going on, and it's interesting why they take these cycles through the media, where they distract us with something else while they're building up another narrative, getting it prepped, giving it a few days to build it up. So they've got this ability to ping pong narratives to keep us bombarded. So there's a lot of that going on, and it's ping ponging between World War III and the next pandemic measurements, right? So those are the things that they're really ping ponging us on. They're prepping us for the next events, for lack of a better word. And this is where we left off before we got so rudely interrupted by those that exist only for that. But yeah, I shouldn't be surprised when I bring up this organization, uh, and of course them exposing that this particular organization, after what we learned from James the other night, is so deeply intertwined in this destruction and devastation agenda, and they're not done. They're not done. That's the overall point that people need to understand with this. So there's going to be a lot of manipulation of the information through the organizations that are the public-private partnerships under the auspices and control of the WEF and the WHO and the IMF and the blah, 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 all of those unelected foreign invaders. I'll use invaders today, right? Yeah, there's we're going to be talking a little bit, Ali's dad, about the crashes that are coming. Just trying to keep a line of making sense to each other, so I don't lose everybody in the bombardment of the insanity. But we need to look at what's happening here in Canada. along the way in the steps, as I cover a bunch of different stuff, I want people to reflect on what's going on in Canada in response to some of this stuff. You know, like earlier about what is our mainstream media looking at, what is Korea doing, and where are we on the GDP situation, and what kind of you know input do we still have in a government that is 40% of the economy? We don't get to have any input in government, so they 100% steer the economy. And they've been able to do this through these public private partnerships. And ultimately, this is where it leaves us. This is the best meme I have seen yet to put into a graphic explanation of how and why we are where we're at. So we don't have this specifically straight up communism. We don't have straight up fascism. We've got this hybrid of the best weapons that both of those ideologies carry, and then they're quantified with the input of the Middle East, and this basically equates to what our Liberal Party is, and this is what it gets us right now. While all of this other insanity is going on, here we've got Canada's energy minister, and we're going to listen to this clown for a couple of minutes.
We talk a lot about climate change these days for obvious reasons. Climate change is altering our world's now.
And the reason I want everybody to hear this is because I'm going to get into what's going on in the real world. And that is pretty dark and dank and freaking scary. So make sure you've got your cocktail or your calming, pacifying beverage of choice for where we go next after listening to this meat muppet. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that for a second. Meat muppet.
Natural environment in a myriad of harmful ways. Last year's wildfire season was instructive in this regard. And just last week, I think the images that we saw coming out of Jasper were horrifying and devastating. Events like these are showing us what the future will look like if we fail to tackle the threat of climate change. That is obviously a future that we must work to avoid. At the same time, climate change is creating enormous economic...
I got to pause this for a second because this enrages me. Now, there's lives lost, and the life of that 24-year-old firefighter is on the hands of meat muppets like this clown and Stéphane Jabot and the rest of these eco-terrorists. They are legitimately eco-terrorists imported into these positions of control to institute more terrorism. And these guys have got to go, beyond have got to go.
Economic opportunities.
That infuriates me.
That are thoughtful, determined, and focused.
These guys killed a firefighter, and now they're out here with this kind of horse shit.
It is not a fluke of chance that China is now the #1 developer and deployer of renewable energy technologies, the #1 manufacturer and deployer of electric vehicle technologies, and that it controls much of the critical minerals value chains around the world. That is the product of a thoughtful economic strategy. For Canada to seize the extraordinary opportunities being created by the transition to a net zero future, we must first accept the scientific reality of climate change. And we must then ensure that this informs and shapes Canada's economic strategy. The second part of the strategy is having a thoughtful approach to ensuring the competitiveness of Canada's oil and gas sector in what will eventually be a declining global market. Such an approach requires aggressive action to reduce emissions from the sector to ensure that Canada will remain competitive in a world that will value the lowest carbon products. Without intending to be overly partisan, I would say that this recognition is not one that is yet shared by all federal political leaders in Canada. I would say that the absence of any recognition of the reality of climate change and the absence of any kind of economic plan that is focused on seizing the economic opportunities of...
That's some kind of, sorry, I just want to pull this up. Somebody noticed this. Yeah, that symbol, Old Saucy. Good one. Good catch on that. That is something that I don't know, but that looks like basically some kind of probably in pentagram capture of an indigenous symbol. But yeah, interesting catch.
A low carbon future, something that our allies in the United States, in the European Union, and competitors like China have long ago figured out, represents a threat to Canada's future economic competitiveness and its prosperity. Over the past 2 years, the federal government has taken significant action and announced a number of investments to help seize the hydrogen opportunity. Today, I am pleased to announce that the Government of Canada will be providing up to $300 million to support the operations of this window.
I wanted to bring this up in relation to the forest management. I spent some of the best physical years of my life doing exactly that. And I can absolutely unequivocally state that there is no community in Alberta that should ever have been devastated or destroyed by fire. Not Jasper, not Fort McMurray, not Slave Lake, not Kelowna, absolutely none of them. That is willful, malicious neglect, in my opinion, and every life lost to that is a travesty. My condolences to that family. That is so unfair and insane. So now we're going to get into a little bit more of clown world. And, Victor Orban, like him or hate him, is absolutely somebody to watch on the periphery of what's going on in the European Union as far as for measuring the insanity over there. And there's a lot of eyes on what's going on in Britain. A lot of eyes going on what's going on in the States. We're can't cover it all in one episode here tonight because I do want to save some room for good news, and I got a long ways to go here. But I wanted you guys just to hear this quick little update from Sebastian. You guys can get all of these links in the Substack for tomorrow. Thanks, Stefan, for the corroboration. You and I, this should never ever happen. There's no excuse, zero justification, zero. Absolutely zero excuse for this except for willful. It's willful. Problem, reaction, solution. They created the problem. Now they're pretending that it's climate change. This is, by definition, eco-terrorism being waged upon unsuspecting and innocent Canadians by a willful, infiltrated, corrupt, and hostile government. I don't know how to make it any more simple and plain. And every single thing that they're doing is in the same willful intent. And now just to highlight, Viktor Orban has become the pariah of the European Union because he created the laws his people demanded. No gender bending surgery and drugs and sterilization of kids in Hungary before they're 18 and they want to do it on their own. Fill your boots. And no mass migration. So on those two principles alone, this is where we're at. With the sanctions now starting to pile up, they are starving Hungary now for oil and gas. They're a winter country too, and this is next on deck for representing your people.
Listen to this, people. Listen to this. MEPs want to kick Hungary out of Schengen area after Budapest eased entry for Russians. I mean, I knew Budapest has eased entry for the Russians. By the way, it's not necessarily dedicated to Russians. However, that's how they frame it. And now it's not just a spat. I mean, it was a spat last week. I haven't even covered it because, okay, this is not going to go anywhere. But you see, even I fall into the trap that I preach to others. Don't fall into that trap. I did it myself. I always underestimate the stupidity of the European Union. I always do. Even though I know better, sometimes it just gets past me.
who amongst us does, in whatever nation that we're in? I know we've got some of our friends and family in the U.S. here today too. Uh, who doesn't fall into this trap? We know they're stupid, and yet they continue to prove to us how much more stupid they can possibly be.
So let's see what they have to say. If you have high blood pressure and you get easily riled up, okay, maybe such as this fella here, please just calm yourself. Just do an ooh-sa before we get into this, because, yeah, you're going to get annoyed. A group of 67 MEPs have written a letter to Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Commission, questioning Hungary's further membership in the Schengen area following Budapest's decision to ease visa requirements for Russians and Belarusians. Okay. Initiated by Lithuanian MEPs Petras Austrevicius and Czech MEP Danuse Nerudova, the letter has garnered signatures from 67 MEPs in total. Let me read you a quote. It's from 1984 from George Orwell. Okay, I am sure you will appreciate this quote. The masses never revolt of their own accord, and they never revolt merely because they are oppressed. Indeed, as long as they are not permitted to have standards of comparison, they never even become aware that they are oppressed. That is the European Union, people. That's the European Union. A government body that nobody voted for, that nobody really wants, to be quite frank with you. Many people want the benefits, the economic benefits of being in the Schengen space, but nobody ever thought that the European Union is going to be a political body.
And this is where we are at here in Canada, with the exact same insanity and stupidity level, and being, enslaved by the same people. And it goes so much deeper than any of this, and all I can do is skim over these in a day. And if you guys can see, here at the top of my bar, I still got a long ways to go. But yeah, so because he represents his people, he is now a mortal threat to the European Union and must be punished because he represents his people. The same kind of thing we'll see in just a few minutes here. But I wanted people to get plugged into a couple of people that are doing some amazing work, and we're going to get to some good news stuff and some folks that you'll want to follow. But this is a big one that I think that Andy Lee is just a force of nature when it comes to exposing the corruption and the collusion between foreign meddling and foreign infiltrators in Canada from the CCP side of things in our government. And she's onto some really, really big stuff here now. And I want to encourage everybody to dig into this foreign inquiry stuff, foreign interference in what she's digging into. So this is written submissions that she's got for everybody. This is going to be huge stuff. Andy Lee, whether you like her or not, isn't important. If you want accurate information, that's going to be a good place to get that kind of stuff. And people needs to know this kind of infiltration in Canada, because ultimately, at the end of the day, they want to distract us with the 11 that they have confirmed, when in fact they are all compromised, every last one of them, through different aspects of the same infiltration, and from the same. I don't even think it's the same ideologies. They're not all. They don't all believe what they're doing, but it pays well. And once they've got you in their traps, whether it's a honeypot and they've framed them for something or another, like the medical system, so many of these people have been captured by the crimes that they now know that they have committed. So they're not going to go against the system lest they be discovered. So that's the big part of what's allowing all of this to happen. So now Greg, Greg Scott does some incredible work. He's camera shy. He's not really into this for getting on camera or anything. I've tried to get him on a show. I think I managed to get him on once for about 15 minutes for something somewhere, but he's also a research guy, a lot like Andy Lee. Get plugged into Greg Scott. He's absolutely on top of things, over the target, and we need to understand, it is absolutely imperative that we understand that this is because of the United Nations Migrant Compact. The government is merely facilitating it, and it's part of the UNSDA, and both of the major parties, in fact, all of the three of the major parties, are contractually obligated to it. They are merely facilitating it because they were whipped into signing it. Our government is acting against the best interests of our people. No ifs, ands, buts about it. There's Greg's got more of this here, the documentation. This isn't a joke, guys. And I'm getting absolutely savaged by people that think Pierre is going to save us, that Pierre is going to end this. He will not. He cannot, because he is contractually obligated already to fulfilling this. I don't want to fight with fellow conservative people in cabinet or in this country, but they for some reason they cannot see this. They're stuck in this fake hope that Pierre is going to save them. And it's not that he can't, but the only way that he possibly will is if the entire population of this country forces him to do so. So this is why 100% Johnny, I'm in the same mindset that there is no political solution. This has to be manifested by we the people before they allow our country to turn into something else. And this is exactly what these clowns are referring to in Liz Churchill's post. I'm going to play this 41 seconds just as a reminder.
He penetrates the cabinets. So change is not just happening. The change can be shaped by us. We have to prepare for a more angry world. How to prepare? Takes the necessary action to create the fairer world. I see the need for a great reset. Some people assume we are just going back to the good old world which we had, and everything will be normal again. This is, let's say, fiction. Will not happen.
There is only one way this pandemic is going to go.
Actually.
So, now I'm going to get to a couple of comments here that are 100% on point. Travis, you're 100% correct. Mulrooney signed us up in 92. I think it was called the Meech Lake Accords. Harper made it law. And then Trudeau got the reins. And so, there is the democracy in our country, unfortunately, as much as I hate to have to be the bearer of this, and this is the crime that's been stolen from us in our country, from the people in our country, is understanding the civic situation, the real democracy, the precariousness of our alleged democracy has been stolen from us. And when I sat with, I typically, I've refrained from naming specific politicians and conversations that I've had with them. When I sat with Derek Sloan and asked him if he wanted to be on the right side of history and help us save our country, what do you mean? It's because Canada is not a sovereign nation. It's a de facto nation, and there's an opportunity to save us by, to save our country through doing what's right, not what's easy. And he laughed. And he says, it doesn't matter. We ruled through implied consent. So he had no interest in taking part in actually setting our nation free. So this was kind of the level of understanding, and they all know. And right now, that this is where we're at, because they're all part of the same criminal syndicate, and they rule through exactly that. Not enough of us stand up and say no in such a capacity. This is where we were so close with the convoy in 2022, but they were desperate. They were desperate, so they manufactured events, sent guys to prison who, gratefully have just had some of their charges dropped. The Coots boys this week. But this is all part of the charade to keep us believing in this democracy, when at the end of the day, it's Russian roulette between both of them, and they have both sold us out. They believe, I think, that it's unstoppable, but at the end of the day, it's not. And we, the people, need to understand and get aligned in the right machinations, the right mechanics of making that happen. And this is where there are people in Canada that know and understand this, and people in Quebec that are taking the right steps and process. And here's the thing, guys: it only takes one province or territory in this country to shatter the illusion of what Canada represents politically. All it takes is one province or territory to effectively use the internationally recognized process, not the snake oil salesman process that people have been using to muddy the waters about the discussion. No, I'm not talking about that. There is actually an internationally recognized process through constitutional conventions that allows a nation to establish its own form of government, and it can be a constitutional republic, it could be a monarchy. People get to decide if they engage in that effective, legitimate process. And that knowledge was what Canada was supposed to do before they panicked. The British royalty panicked and brought Winston Churchill in to create a world war that would distract the world from Canada going through that process and actually achieving its sovereignty. And then Trudeau Sr. came in and pulled the hoodwink on everybody and pretended that we had a constitution and a charter of rights that would absolutely mean something. But if you caught the show last week where we brought up the new party in Quebec and what they are doing, they are only doing that because they understand, and they are done playing the charade. And they have called up the Bloc Québécois and the Liberal Party of Canada and given them an ultimatum and said, if you don't fix that charade, that lie of democracy, then we will claim what is rightfully theirs with the will of the people. And this is at the separation point. This is why I believe that this election is nothing but a manifested distraction to maintain the illusion. So long as we continue to play the game willingly, they're preying on the desperation of people that still want democracy. If we want democracy, Canadians are going to have to do something, and they're going to have to do something different than they've ever known to do before. But they're going to get sideswiped with this, because if the rest of Canada doesn't get involved in the process, then they're going to be behind in the process when it comes and gives everybody the great big 2x4 smack alongside of the head. And people are going to, what just happened? And then people are going to go, why didn't anybody tell me? Why didn't anybody warn us? This is exactly why Quebec as a province gets equal representation in the House of Parliament. So it's now or never, guys. And some people are actually getting organized in Quebec to do exactly that. And if we don't, we are going to be looking at ourselves as victims again. When I use the term pull on Iceland, I don't use that in jest. And that is literally the process. Although Iceland, when they had their choice, they made some very poor choices, but they had the choice. And I want to address this. That'll never work in Ontario. It doesn't matter. This is the point that I want people to understand. It doesn't matter if Ontario tries it and it doesn't work. If Quebec tries it and it does work, you have no choice. Simply because the entire illusion of Canada gets dissolved. Every trade agreement, every policy agreement, every law, every border gets to be reestablished by the province or territory that takes what is rightfully theirs. So at the rest of that point, every other province and territory, that's my point, is going to be blindsided and saying, What do you mean we have no rules? We have no laws. We have no borders or boundaries. Well, United Nations will be right there to help, guys. Right there to help. Right? So this is the delusion that they have manifested and stolen from Canadians as their right to actually understand the severity and the crisis that our nation is in, and why I am filled with nothing but contempt for these fake people that know and play the game anyway. So when Pierre Poilievre says, yeah, no, I'm not going to remove Canada from the Paris Accords. Why? Because he has signed on to it. He is contractually obligated to it. And he is lying to every desperate Canadian that thinks that is the only way to get out of this. Because, guys, that doesn't get us out of this. Doesn't get us out of this at all. Those are the agreements, the migration compacts and the UNSDA. Those are the ones that these traitors are implementing foreign policy in Canada based on and plan to do for the next foreseeable future. So without removing the entire system of the corruption, without removing the entire syndicate and holding there will never ever be a holding of any of them to account, and we will be stuck as debt slaves for all eternity while I continue this monumental extraction of all of our wealth, giving it up and giving us away while they're busy replacing us with people that have no interest in what we represent or believe in Canada. So now this is a 24-second clip that Roman Baber had the guts to share with us. And this is just kind of where we're going to kind of take a look at what's already starting here and what's happening in the UK and where the terrifying part of all of this is. This is what these people are here for. They're not here to embrace the Canadian way of life and live under the supremacy of God. Absolutely not. These guys have been promised by certain organizations, and I'm going to pull up one in particular that people probably I bring it up here from time to time, and I'm only going to pull this up here right now. We're not going to get really into this, but people wonder why. Who's pulling the strings? Why is the United Nations so hell-bent on this invasion of the planet? Why is the United Nations, WHO, this pharma biological weaponized institution that's unelected? Why do they wage war on the entire West? Why is one of these particular nations running the human rights demanding more for our societies? Well, they are absolutely infiltrated as well. Just like the World Economic Forum has infiltrated Canada and all other Western nations with this radical, new Fourth Reich policy and implementing it. The same thing, United Nations has been infiltrated, and this is basically a diagram of what is known as the 56+1, the IOC, which is the largest single voting bloc in the United Nations. So this is why the West has long since lost its voice and representation and ability to counter what is coming. This is why people like Stephen Harper and Justin Trudeau bow to get their profits because they know they can't change a thing because they're all contractually obligated to the organizations that these guys control. And this ultimately is actually the cause and purpose between why we have this on our streets right now and unsecured borders. We talked about the other day where they lost 500,000 of them here in Canada. Oh, so they're just going to give them citizenship. Okay, right. So let's listen to, this is 8 minutes, and I'm not going to play the entire 8 minutes because I want people to go and follow Natasha Montreal, Live Free or Die. I want people to go and get plugged in to the rest of this clip because Here we have somebody in Quebec that is actually able to get something out to us so that we can see how bad it is there, and start to understand, as much as I jest and I've been assaulted for, mocking, or mocking myself a little bit, and wondering, is it time to get myself literally a suit of crusader armor? I don't think that's as crazy as it might sound.
Either us or us and nothing else. And this should be clear. I repeat what my brother said before a few moments, which we used to educate ourselves and raise our kids since the first day. We will never recognize Israel. It's not a matter of weak or strong. It's not a matter of balancing. It's not a matter of solving the issues. No. The conflict is not a conflict. It's not two sides conflict. There is an occupier and there's occupied people. And the occupied people has the right to resist. And the occupier has no right to resist. And whoever is standing beside the occupier, regardless his religion, either it is Muslim or Christian, West or Arabs, he is our enemy too, and has to be disclosed. Don't be soft in expressing the situation now. You have to be clear, brothers and sisters. The amount of pain never been experienced in our recent history. The amount of pain our people are living.
This does not belong in Canada. If we don't address this and address this immediately, and I'm afraid it might be too late, because here is already how they are looking at us. If you don't think that I'm already on this list, if I was in the UK, that Starmer would have me on his list, let's listen to this first couple of seconds, and we're going to hear from a couple of clips here from some people that I encourage you also to get plugged into.
Be in no doubt, those that have participated in this violence will face the full force of the law. The police will be making arrests, individuals will be held on remand, charges will follow, and convictions will follow. I guarantee you will regret taking part in this disorder, whether directly or those whipping up this action online and then running away themselves.
There it is, Bill C-63. Guys, that's underway in the UK. If you should happen to say something, you are going to be the criminal. And while we are being silenced, this is kind of what's going on. It's not going away this time, guys. It's not going away. And here's a couple minutes from Alex Christoforou. He's probably, if I wants to get everything in one little package for the day, a couple of videos from Alex will kind of give you a really good place to look.
Open in the U.S. today, things are going to be really, really bad. But lot of fear, a lot of uncertainty. Everyone is expecting a big war to happen today. That's what Axios is reporting, that Iran is going to retaliate to Israel, to the Israel.
I'm going to pause here for just a second. Now, it's a military chopper, and I've got a couple of clips pulled out from Alex's little update today. In there's a couple of things that he wouldn't have been able to know or see while he was doing this update. I want to touch on this. I absolutely, Mira, and this is where it becomes the government's will, shall we say. The people in the UK are trying to defend what happened. So these riots are starting over these children that were murdered and a whole bunch more wounded. And they're trying to defend this guy, saying he's not an immigrant because he was born in the UK. That's how they're trying to say that now it's Islamophobia and you're a criminal because this guy was born in the UK. Well, he was born to people, even if he was born in the UK, he had absolutely no British social, he was feral. He was absolutely feral. And that's the thing. They become isolated. They come in, they move in, they create and develop and overrun areas and regions. And he had every opportunity to live in an environment that was a white or British free zone, then i.e. the no-go zones for police or enforcements that have been infecting cities for a very long time in the UK. So that's how, whether he was born there or not, they will not assimilate, they will breed, and now one of the offspring took out 20 people and killed 3 children, and now the people in England that are upset with this are the criminals for being upset. Sorry. That's unacceptable, and that's where we're going. But this
attack in Tehran, a small projectile used to assassinate the Hamas leader, who was, by the way, the chief negotiator. Funny how that works, huh? You took out the Hamas leader, but you also took out the one person that was trying to negotiate, or was the lead negotiator and trying to get a ceasefire in Gaza. But Iran's going to have to retaliate. And retaliate it will. The Wall Street Journal is reporting that Iran, approached by various countries in the Middle East with intervention from the United States, they are being urged to retaliate in a way that was similar to what happened in April when the Iranian embassy, the consulate embassy, was hit in Syria. And Iran is telling basically the United States via interlocutors in the Middle East, Iran is telling them, go pound sand. This is not going to happen this time around.
So that's the important part of that little segment that I wanted people to catch. But this is just kind of incidentally something that happened a little bit later.
Something's going down, everybody.
He's in Cyprus, which is a transition logistics hub for our side. U.S. has spaces there. That's what you're seeing landing there. Some folks are recognize that.
Oh crap! Something is going down. So anyway, that's the New York Times article.
So that's kind of where I wanted to leave off on that. I'm going to be running a little bit late. I'm going to try and tie this up with a few more points for y'all.
Or on Bangladesh after headlines.
So yeah, Bangladesh, I'm not getting into that, but they've overthrown their government. The the leader has been arrested or fled the country. The military has not intervened against the population in Bangladesh, and that government has been overthrown. But there's a couple of seconds here that I wanted people to get from somebody else other than just me.
The U.S. has sent additional military forces, warships, and fighter jets to the Middle East as Israel braces for a possible retaliatory attack by Iran and Hezbollah. Last week, Israel assassinated Hamas's political chief, Ismail Haniyeh, in Tehran, as well as a top Hezbollah commander in Beirut. A number of countries, including the U.S., France, and the UK, have urged their citizens to leave Lebanon as fears grow of a broader regional war. President Biden's planning to meet with his national security team today.
Which I'm sure everybody has a tremendous amount of faith in Mr. Blinken and globalist co to resolve this situation when they're taking out the top peace negotiator. And here's the thing that people are probably not. We talked about this on a couple of weeks ago when we look at how to look at potentially what this, if this, people don't have a clue what's coming. People really don't. The technology that we think is going to blow shit up, that's not going to be what happens. That's not the way it's going to go this time, guys. We've been lied to for so long. I don't want to be right about this, but unfortunately, I can't find any information to prove it wrong. Exactly, Joni Leclerc, Biden. That's what pretty much the enemies of our leaders think of Joe Biden as well, and Canada. And why? Why is Iran striking? Telling America to go pound sand this time? Yeah, Joe Biden and Obama and. Absolutely, Travis. Shit's about to get real. And now this is the point I want to make. We covered this a couple of weeks ago about the tech. We think that we are safe. Israel thinks that it is safe. Israel has gone rogue. The leadership of Israel has gone absolutely rogue. They have bombed and attacked 4 other nations in one day. How can anybody justify or reason with that? And now the U.S. is sending a carrier fleet into the conflict zone, and Iran is not going to piss around. Iran has declared, or it's leaked, that Iran is nuclear capable, but it's not even Iran's nuclear capabilities now that we have to be afraid of. They have been armed by Putin and China. Think hypersonics, mass numbers of hypersonics. Why on earth would we be so naive as to think here that China and Russia would not be capable of orchestrating a proxy war against the American-Israeli partnership? So I am very desperately afraid that America is sending their Navy, their carrier fleet in there, and they are going to immediately be turned into an underwater submarine fleet because they will not have the capabilities to defend themselves against what Iran could potentially have right now. And then what? Then what? Then we have exactly this kind of altercation that the people will suffer. Only the people will suffer. We have to do something to stop these mad men from fulfilling their objectives. And so I'm going to get away from that a little bit. Don't want it to be all doom and gloom, but through all of this insanity, somebody's got to be at least somebody out here in the internet and media space that's kind of tying some bows or some lines between this. These guys, you can't put up a new building without leveling the old one, and that's where our leadership is playing right into the hand of the WEF and Russia and China and the markets today. Absolutely. Giant. Uh, we're going to get into that here actually in just a minute. We're going to get into the markets, the whole Black Monday, black shirt, tie along. And this is the segue to it. BRICS. El Salvador. Everybody's been kind of looking at this El Salvador guy as having taking a literal third world shithole and turning it into a real nation that people want to go to again. But yeah, like where we started the show with looking at our the American universal reserve currency days numbered. Oh, absolutely. And this is just another indicator of why this is all going to collapse. And now we're going to get into a little bit of what Black Monday is about.
Intel just announced they're cutting 15,000 jobs, or 15% of its workforce. The stock market, I have lots of questions. Can you just give me the update on what's happened around the world and then with the opening bell with the stock market?
So last week, obviously, we saw some selling off in the stock market. It started with a repricing of the quote unquote Magnificent Seven tech stocks that had been driving up the market, taking everything else up with them. And I think there was an awakening that, in order for AI to be a thesis, companies are going to actually have to spend a lot of money. And that started kind of things, a few weeks ago moving. Then in the middle of last week, we had the Fed, who did not lower rates, but did signal that that could be on the table for September. And, normally you would say, okay, the market wants the Fed to cut rates. But what happened is then we got a weak job report on Friday. And while sometimes, the bad news can be good news for the market, in this case, they took it as bad news that potentially the Fed was behind the curve in terms of lowering rates, and that, that they felt like maybe this whole idea of a quote unquote soft landing, the idea that you can get the economy and inflation down without wrecking the economy, is off the table. Then, while all of this is going on, you have the Bank of Japan last week that decided to do the opposite of the Fed. They have been in 17 years of basically negative or zero interest rates. So their normalization is going in the other direction. They've been trying to raise rates. They did so for the first time in 17 years about 4 months ago. And then they decided, because the yen, the yen against the dollar, they needed to fix that they were going to go ahead and raise their rates. And unfortunately, they did not thread the needle perfectly on that, and that created implications for their markets. So when Japan opened, last night, our time, their time in the morning, they saw this massive sell-off. And what happens sometimes when you get these massive sell-offs are these unwinding of trades. Because they have had zero to negative interest rates, you get a lot of people borrowing. Those people who borrow make bets on the yen and on stocks, both in Japan and in the US. And then they get the margin calls, and then they end up having to sell, and that begets more margin calls. So you saw the Japanese Nikkei go down 12.5% in one day. It was their single worst day since 1987, that Black Monday day. So now, as the market has opened here in the United States, there's anticipation of, do we get, how much blowback do we get? Especially since we had seen some weakness last week. And, obviously things are going to shift during the trading day as we talk a lot here. So this is kind of real time, but the market opened up down pretty significantly, depending on the index, somewhere between 3 and almost 5%. And we have seen that come off a little bit as we're talking real time. I think that is, if there's any silver lining here, it's not that it opened and then it continued to fall and continued to fall. There was a little bit of support there.
But wait, there's more. I wanted to touch on this. Of course, everybody is de-dollarizing right now. Anybody that's invested in U.S. treasuries or in U.S. dollars is getting out while they can. It's kind of like a run on the banks. Well, they're putting a run on getting out of their U.S. dollar before they lose any more. And this is the oh but wait, there's more part.
So I think that's part of it. Another catalyst that we've seen is Warren Buffett noted that he had lessened his position in Apple by about 49%. And obviously,
that's not lessening. That's not lessening. That's cutting it in half.
That's dumping.
Cutting it in half.
What does
it is.
And he's doing this with a lot of his holdings, if I understand right. He's making some of the biggest sales he's ever made. It's almost as if he's becoming bullish on America. And what does he know that we don't know again?
This is a good question, and it's funny that we're having this discussion today, because if you go through his shareholder letter, one of his other really big bets that he talks about in the shareholder letter is starting in 2019, he doubled down on Japan. So he has 5 really big companies and really big positions in Japan. So the day that we're talking about Japan going down and at the same time the U.S. is going down, obviously Warren Buffett was not a catalyst for both of those things, because he's still, as far as we know, still bullish on the Japanese trade. But it is interesting. I mean, he has this massive cash pile. I mean, $276 billion, I think it is, which is just almost impossible to deploy. I mean, to think about how, as an investor, do you even think about putting that to work and getting the appropriate returns? So I don't know. There could be several catalysts. This is all very much speculation because we have not heard from Warren at this point. Right. I don't know if this is a...
So there are some strong suspicions that that money that's being dumped and sucked out through all of this, there's actually not suspicions, allegations. People are tracking it. I wasn't able to get on that in time for the show here tonight, but there's a reason why they've been suppressing the gold and silver markets, and some nations are loading up right now. Let's just say that. So I can't, on Friday, I'm sure when Bryce is back for Bankers, Bandits, Bullion, and Bucks with Bryce, we will hear all about that and a lot of stuff that's going to be happening in between as well. And absolutely, Jennifer, this is what we've been trying to warn people from the mountaintops for the longest time, that it's coming. And yeah, tomorrow may be worse. And over the next coming days, this is going to be very interesting to see how this goes, because can't argue with you, Travis. It's money laundering, and it's bad, and the rich people are getting out while they can. So we're probably going to be another 10 or 15 minutes, guys. I try to line up an hour, but then when I get through, I'm like, no, I don't want to leave that on the table. It might be over by tomorrow. So I'll keep you a little later. We're going to go through some wins of the week. We're going to with Dr. Trotzy and Ted Kuntz, but there's a couple of other ones that I'm just going to skip over real first before we dig into that article. And this one is from Peter Sweden. Peter Sweden, he goes by on X, a very outspoken guy, obviously from Sweden, huge following. The WEF agenda is failing. We know this. We know this, guys. We keep doing the things, the micro things. We had an amazing meeting on Saturday where we talked about dollar politics and how we can literally give these kinds of companies the Bud Light education and crush them. So that was really exciting on Saturday, and this is one of these affirming things good to see happening. And BioNTech posts 808 million euro loss as company continues to come to grips with the vax or jab hesitancy is what is happening there. So But yeah, so we're having impacts, guys, and the closer we come into alignment, the more that we're able to do. So, Dr. Trotsy's blog, every week he comes out and him and Ted gets together and talk about some of the wins of the week. So this is where I'm going to kind of end off with this and these guys. Lots going on and happening out there everywhere. I'm going to throw up a couple of other little banners here while I think about it. For those that aren't following James yet, on Wednesday, he's got a massive evidence and document dump coming on his Substack. Make sure you get hold of James there. Once again, please like and smash that subscribe button. Make sure your notifications are turned on. They do everything they can to make sure you don't get notified when I do this. And support your your favorite journalists, the guys that are doing the hard work, sticking their nose out above the parapet. No matter who they are, support them. They are the most effective weapons in this information warfare that's being waged right now, and they need your help more than ever. This platform included, and if you want to help this platform out, this is the one that we do that with. So I'll leave that up there for just a second, guys, and I'll turn this other one off so it's not quite so intrusive. And we'll cover a little bit of Dr. Trotsy's good news. So people are refusing any more lies and abuse, 100%. It's happening everywhere. There's resistance and the desperation of these bioweapons profiteering corporations, the desperation that they're having, going to the WHO and the United Nations and the World Economic Forum, begging them for help to evade the accountability that's coming and to keep the profits flowing. They're desperate. So they want to create more of what we're seeing in the UK, what we can expect here in Canada and the United States. And both of our countries have been overrun, guys, with people that have nothing but ill intentions, and they want what we've got. So I'm not, again, being facetious when I say I think that the next crusades are going to be fought right here in our towns, our streets, our backyards, and we need to be prepared accordingly. So people are fighting back, refusing the lies. Child genital mutilations are losing access. Mutilators are losing access to our kids. In case in point, they're not letting you know out there, except through platforms like me, that countries like Hungary and Georgia and some of these other ones they're done with it. They're not letting these monsters near their kids, and we don't have to either. And Bangladesh, they lost more than 100 people, but they were able to stop it there. And we're going to have to get braver here, right Chicken Louie, because if we don't turn Pierre and show some responsibility and investment into Canada, it's only going to get worse. But Canadian judges are blocking federal tyranny. There was a case we talked about last night where if they want to perform a test on you, it is 100% against the law. And so this is where the reality and it's up to us. At the same time, I'm reporting how it's against the law for the government to use this form of testing. Anything based on PCR testing is 100% against the law. They're locking down hospitals and senior centers. Again, how and based on what? Exactly that crime that they've already been told is against the freaking law. But if we don't hold them to that and say, no, you don't get to do that, they're going to carry on to do that with these jabs. And the mandators are losing in court and compensating their victims. Good to see, but it needs to stop, and it needs to stop before they get to round 2. So we got to keep going. German mainstream media declares the C-19 unjabbed to be wise winners. An article that did come out. So rare, few and far between, but there are people that are, it's starting to come out, right? and outside of just those of us that are fighting the fight for that. So there's safe drinking water at last for one Canadian First Nation community. So fantastic, good stuff. A message from Bobby Kennedy in his U.S. presidential campaign. If if the Biden-Harris administration states we finally beat Big Pharma, if that is true, then why are kids still being mandated 76 jabs? Total. It's every bit of these jabs that they give these kids is psychopathy, right? But he promises to end it. Massive crowds of Venezuelans protested in the streets, and apparently it looks like they're going to win through intervention and interference. I haven't been following that closely as I would like this time around, but I have every conviction that Maduro is an illegitimate leader, much in the same fashion as Zelensky, given what I saw the last time they supposedly had elections in Venezuela. So until the people are in control in Venezuela, I'm not buying it and keeping my eyes peeled on as it goes. But a new report by the Aristotle Foundation for Public Policy and Do No Harm, a group of healthcare professionals and policymakers who advocate for keeping identity politics out of medical education, research, and clinical practices. So it's good to see some people rising for that. A meme that's circulating: if you don't already have a conspiracy theorist friend, go get one. You're going to need one to understand what's about to happen. This is more on if you didn't take the job, you're winners. So more on that story and some links to that for those that want to know more about that. The U.S. Navy settled a lawsuit over its jab mandating, marking a partial victory for thousands there. This is only just beginning and needs to carry on in Canada. The Canadian government is coming to terms with the knowledge that they are not as infallible as they believed in their ability to enact laws without accountability, or more importantly, without liability as a result of a Supreme Court Canada decision. So the Supreme Court confirmed that the government can and should be held to account when enacting unconstitutional laws that infringe upon our rights, specifically those which are clearly wrong, in bad faith, or an abuse of power, Chief Justice Wagner stated. By shielding the government from liability in even the most egregious circumstances, absolute immunity would subvert the principles that demand government accountability. This should result in a number of lawsuits against the government. So that is basically throwing the doors open to accountability based on information that is being presented in other cases, up to and including what James is going to be providing on Wednesday. There's a lot coming. A lot of cases against the government in ways that different ways that are going after the individuals, so that it's not taxpayers left paying the damages of it. So Meta has, we covered this last week as well. I think they've agreed to pay $1.4 billion to settle a lawsuit brought by Texas over its unauthorized capture and use of personal biometric data. This is a case that needs to be fought against Trudeau in Canada. So I hope that there's somebody out there that has already started on that. Canada Children's Health Defense today filed an amicus brief this week urging the North Carolina Supreme Court to overturn the dismissal of a case involving Tanner Smith, a 14-year-old who was given the jab against his will and without his parents' consent. So more to follow on that. While not necessarily good news, none of the conspiracy theory has been confirmed. Dark field microscopy testing on dental anesthetics done at the University of Boulder, Colorado, has confirmed the presence of graphene. So more horrible stuff that they are doing through the monstrosity that our medical systems have become. this is we joked around for a lot of years that they're not, medical systems and doctors don't exist to cure anything. They only exist to create more customers, and this last couple 4 years should prove to everybody that it has gone so far beyond that to the diabolical, devious, nefarious side of things that those organizations needs to be reborn, shall we say, in a different way. So Aaron Siri posted this week, the majority of Americans now officially meet the definition of anti-jabbers, he writes. The Webster Dictionary defines an anti-jabber as a person who opposes the use of some or all jabs, regulations mandating jabs, or usually both, meaning a person that opposes receiving a C-19 jab or an influenza jab is now just an anti-jabber. And guess what? The majority of Americans now oppose receiving both of those jabs. In fact, according to the CDC, less than 23% of the adult population in the U.S. has received an updated jab, despite a relentless multi-billion-dollar national promotion campaign. So guess what, guys? You're all going to be, we're all going to be enemies of the pharma corporation government that is trying to capture us and reduce the carbon, right? So what else we got here? So yeah, the next time someone calls you an anti-jabber because you have made an informed decision to not receive a medical intervention, let them know that yes, you did make an informed, independent medical decision, and wish them luck doing the opposite. You can also let them know that since anti-jabbers are now the majority, you understand their insecurity and hostility, but they shouldn't worry. The anti-jab majority is not interested in taking away the rights of the pro-jabbed minority. They can feel free to get or not get as many jabs as they wish. We in the majority just ask that they respect our right to do the same. I love that line of destroying their ability to attack us. That's going to become critical in the coming days of the next wave of insanity. So a new water treatment facility now supplying drinking water to residents of Saskatchewan Reserve that had been under a boil water advisory for 17 years. As wonderful as it is that they've finally done this, 17 years. 17 years. That's not just Trudeau. 17 years. And that's only one. Meanwhile, how many billions have they sent to Ukraine and every clapping seal from both sides of the aisle? More for Zelensky, but 17 years. Great for them. But what about everybody else? Right? Their communism is failing, right? Everybody's supposed to have equal equity, equal results, right? So Dr. Richard Urso shared some of his research and other insights revealing a huge spectrum of benefits from the drug hydroxychloroquine. Imagine that. I wonder why they, got rid of Honey and Barry Sherman, holding the generic rights to exactly that hydroxychloroquine, included that it lowers the D-dimer SED rate, C-reactive protein, decreases I can't even say that, improves the bone health, decreases cholesterol level, decreases hemoglobin A1, glucose tolerance is improved, a 70% chance of improvement in chronic kidney disease for those people at risk, decreases stroke, heart attacks, pulmonary embolisms. It's actually one of the best drugs you could ever take. It is interesting and perverse that Ivor and hydroxychloroquine were the most demonized C-19 drugs, which Canadian doctors are unlawfully persecuted for prescribing for the beer bug. So the World Council for Health Canada launched their platform this week. I think I shared a link to that on my Substack. It was very well received with hundreds of people subscribing in the first hours of the launch. It looks like Canadians are ready to dig in and restore our health rights. The World Council for Health, whether you know it or not, This platform and the work that we've done going back to 2020 was integral in the early stages of bringing together the people to allow that to happen, to providing a platform for those doctors to speak. I was the one hosting doctor talks with the doctors that are still in the fight today. We've been very blessed in this community to have heard from some of the best that have gone on to help create organizations exactly like the World Council for Health and others that have been fighting back and defending people everywhere. So VCC has been invited to a table at the PPC convention. That's to each their own. I think we've already covered my thoughts on politics in that regard. So, wow, that was a race through 15 or 16 minutes of good news. So go back here and see if I can pull up a couple of good comments. If there's, before I let everybody go, I'm starting to lose my voice. I'm starting to melt. But I do love being able to give you guys the best information that I find every single day. So tomorrow, I have no idea what's going to be on for Clown World tomorrow, but I'm sure there'll be plenty of updates that'll be worth following up on based on today's stuff. So today was kind of a gathering of a whole bunch of stuff. So yeah, let's see here. All right, I'm not seeing anything that I can actually genuinely answer and have an impact. So my head's kind of spinning, guys. And yeah, Wednesday, I'm not sure if I'm going to have another guest in, so we would have guests on Wednesday and Thursday, or how that's going to roll out yet. But yeah, I love you guys all. Stay mighty, stay warriors, stay strong. Don't get trapped. Don't get trapped. Don't fall under the trap. Tomorrow's Substack is going to be an absolute gold mine of information. So I do encourage you guys to get subscribed on the Substack. I think we're up to about 760 or 770 people in the Substack, but we still got a long ways to go. I'm so... There's one thing that gives me anxiety is knowing that I've got 40,000 followers on my Facebook channel. I've got 5,000 followers on Rumble, and those 40,000 followers on Facebook are going to get lost if they're not plugged in on Rumble or Substack. I'm not going to be here that much longer, and I know everybody is so heavily invested in Facebook, guys, but we can't just sit around and cry and moan and not do anything about it on Facebook. Facebook isn't where it happens. We need to get plugged in elsewhere. This is how exactly we get stuck in this. So really, really hope that you guys get plugged in over on Substack and Rumble so that we can, do more to get organized, because, the faster we do that, the sooner we make it all stop. All right. So I love you all. Stay mighty, my fellow patriots and hostages. And we will see you same time, same place tomorrow. Bye now.